friends, welcome to another episode of View from the Bridge, which brings you face to face with leaders of the maritime world. My name is Akanksha Batura Pai, and today I will be your host. Even though COVID-19's impact on travel has created widespread uncertainty and border controls and travel restrictions have made movement challenging, the shipping industry is achieving continued success in moving its people to facilitate crew changes. In this episode, we speak with none other than Captain Pankaj Sood, Executive Officer and General Manager, MMS Company Limited, which was the first company to execute the chartering of flights from India to get things moving back on track. We are proud to introduce Captain Sood, who's with me today. Just a little bit of information about him. He's had an illustrious career both at sea and ashore, having been one of the chief officers on the world's largest ship, Yare Viking. He was ranked as one of the most successful and promising young masters at that time at Volume Ship Management. He later stepped ashore to work with a renowned Japanese company and is now heading the Department of Ship Management of Tankers, which is managed both from Singapore as well as Gurgaon, India. And I'm sure, like me, you're all eager to find out more about that first batch of 50 Indian seafarers who made history by flying out of the country during a world pandemic on the first ever chartered flight that was allowed to any shipping company by the government of India. So let's get to know all about it. So Captain Sood, welcome. And so as discussed, the special chartered flights for seafarers have ignited a new ray of hope to save thousands of jobs for Indian seafarers. We understand that you were not only the first person to initiate the idea, but of course to implement it as well. Would you be able to share more about this entire process, please?
Thank you very much, Akanksha, for your wonderful introduction. And thank you, Captain Nangia, Sailor Today, for giving me this opportunity today to speak out on this particular issue. As we all know that COVID-19 outbreak, it resulted in the complete shutdown of the world. The entire industry was on lockdown, more or less. The international borders were closed. So India was not an exception. And the biggest sufferers were the Indian seafarers. The movement of Indian seafarers completely stopped. And it was at that time when from 25th March when India went on lockdown until 19th of May, there was absolutely no movement of Indian seafarers except when the ships came to Indian port. So Akanksha, it was a wild thought on 25th of April, which turned into a reality on 19th of May, which nobody had ever thought of it. But it raised a new hope for the Indian seafarers. It opened up new opportunities for the owners who had started switching over to other nationalities, and Indian seafarers were going to start losing their jobs, high-paying jobs at sea. So this opened a new horizon for all the Indian seafarers, and the movement started from 19th May when the first batch of 50 seafarers, the brave soldiers, I would say, took a challenge to travel across India under the lockdown conditions when there were no domestic flights also. Hats off to our manning arm who arranged all their state transports and the permits. And finally, the flight took off on the 19th of May from Bangalore to Colombo, which was the beginning of the movement of seafarers from India once again.
Yes, and we know that many other companies now have followed suit, taking on their own chartered flights. So, as you just mentioned, that entire operation involved very rapid action by not just your company, but even by the government of India to churn out SOPs. And as you mentioned, the first flight took place on the 19th of May, and it took, I think, maybe more than 15 days of approvals from at least maybe 6 ministries. So any thoughts on that bureaucratic experience? How was that like?
Yes, indeed, Akanksha. In fact, not 15 days. It took more than 3 weeks rather to get all the things in place. Once this first chartered flight took off on the 19th of May, I think a lot of Indian ship owners, Indian shipping companies, Indian shipping bodies like OSMA, MASA, IMF, INSA, NUSI, NU, MUI, everybody approached the Director General of Shipping, the Shipping Ministry. And believe me, after that, the first flight of 19th May, there were no SOPs, no standard operating procedures for this type of flights. But hats off to the government of India, salute to government of India, various departments, that within 4 to 5 days after 19th of May, the SOPs were written. DG Shipping was authorized to approve for the chartered flights under, of course, direct instruction from Ministry of Shipping and Ministry of or Director General of Civil Aviation. So our shipping minister, Mr. Mansukh Mandavia, I think he did a wonderful job. He is doing a wonderful job, and this has actually started the movement of Indian seafarers all across the globe through these chartered flights. These bodies, when they approached DG Shipping, they got the approvals for the chartered flights, and what started as the first batch of officers going, or the Indian seafarers going for the new deliveries, it became a practice for the entire crew changes, because the seafarers were stuck on the ships. They also had to come back to India. So these chartered flights now are taking the seafarers out for taking up the jobs, the people who are waiting, and the seafarers who are stuck on board for long durations, to bring them back into the country. So this was a major breakthrough. The setback due to COVID, due to lockdowns, turned into a comeback through this chartered flight of 19th May. I like that the process of the first approval, which, as you mentioned, was through 6 ministries in the government of India. So I just want to share a little bit on that. It was a wonderful experience, although, as I said, it was a wild thought on 25th of April, but then we approached the government of India through one of the top industry body in India, which is called ASSOCHAM, and their Secretary General, Mr. Deepak, he took up our matter, although it's not non-shipping body, but it's an industry body. So they took up a matter with the government of India to let the high-paying jobs not get lost from Indian seafarers, because owners had started shifting to other nationalities. So there it started, and it involved, we also approached Ministry of External Affairs directly, but the matter started from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, then it went to the Disaster Management Cell, which is the COVID Disaster Management Cell, then it went to Ministry of Home Affairs, then it came to Ministry of External Affairs, then it was further sent to Ministry of Civil Aviation. And from there, the final go-ahead went to the Director General of Civil Aviation, who authorized the chartered flight, and the carrier, which was SpiceJet in that case, had to do a lot of hard work. And finally, it was a great cooperation from the Civil Aviation Authority of Sri Lanka, who gave us the landing permit for the flight within a matter of few hours. So this is how the entire process worked at that time.
My goodness! So this is not just 6 ministries. This is unrelated and a very interdisciplinary action that took place. So hats off to you guys for really pushing through and ensuring the groundwork was laid for the future few companies. Since you're based in Singapore, if you could maybe shed some light on the updates in Singapore, what's happening there, especially regards to, of course, crew change.
Yeah, Singapore always have been very friendly for the crew changes. Under normal conditions, of course, Singapore is a hub where thousands and thousands of crew changes take place. But unfortunately, after the outbreak of COVID, there were some SOPs laid down by the Singapore government also, because they had to make a balance between the crew changes and also the public health. So those SOPs were a little tough to follow, but they came out with a circular in May, which required the vessel to be in the port when the crew arrived, and the off-signing crew flying out till the time the vessel has to be in the port, the flight till the time flight took off. So that was very difficult to comply. Of course, in addition, there were requirements that PCR test for COVID had to be taken 48 hours before departure from India or from the home country. Then within 24 hours of flying out of the home country, they had to have the fitness to travel certificate from a certified doctor. So all these were complied. There were some crew changes which were happening, rather quite a number of crew changes, but that was involving the number of delays to the vessels. So with the second phase of unlockdown, I would say, or opening up phase in Singapore, that time Singapore government or the MPA came out with another circular which supplemented the circular of May 2020. This circular was issued on 18th of June 2020, and it was effective from 19th June, where they allowed 48 hours of stay for the seafarers into dedicated quarantine facilities where they could stay. So the ship did not have to be in the port now, or ship need not wait till the flight took off. So 48 hours was given. Then they also introduced the telemedicine facility, which means the doctor before had to go on board to certify that the off-signers are fit to travel. But now, through the video conferencing facility, the certified Singapore Medical Council certified doctors can issue that certificate through video conferencing. It also reduces the cost, of course. And then they introduced the meet and greet facility. So all on-signers at airport must be met at the disembarkation point from the flight, and then they have to be taken, handed over to the agent through dedicated transport facility. So either they go direct on the ship or they go to the quarantine facility where they are allowed to wait up to 48 hours. So these changes were very welcome changes, I think, by the industry, and it has facilitated the crew changes much more in Singapore now.
That's good. I see that's good progress towards getting it more opened up. Now, you did mention that there was there's this test that needs to be done 48 hours before the PCR test. And recently there were some reports about seafarers maybe even testing positive after flying out of India, even though they had tested negative before they took the flight. Any thoughts on this? What's happening there on that front?
Yes, Akanksha, unfortunately, it did happen a couple of times. Some people did face this issue where they flew with the negative PCR test results, but on arrival at the destination country, because these countries most of the countries require a PCR test to be done on arrival. So some of the seafarers, they tested positive. So different countries are handling it in a different way. Like, for example, if something like this happens in a country like Korea, where a lot of seafarers are traveling, they put the person tested positive in a hospital, and rest all are anyway put in quarantine, because that is their requirement. Whether you test positive or negative, you have to undergo 40 days of quarantine there before you are allowed to go into the city or into the port. So in Korea, it's not a very big issue. A sick person will be transferred to hospital. Others, they continue 14 days quarantine and they go normal. But in a country like Japan, if one of the seafarers is tested positive, the entire group has to return back to the home country. But the sick person, of course, will be transferred to the hospital, into COVID hospital, and he will be treated there. But all others who travel in the group have to go back. In Singapore, they handle it in a different way. Of course, the person who is tested positive has to go to the COVID facility for treatment, and others if they are tested negative, they will be allowed to go on board. Then in Sri Lanka, of course, if the chartered flight coming, if even one person tested positive among the people who travel in the chartered flight, the entire lot of people traveling by chartered flight are put in quarantine. So the different countries are actually handling it in a different way.
Actually, Captain Sood, I'm very impressed with your efficient, knowledge, because my next question was going to be, how are the countries Singapore, Japan, Korea, and Sri Lanka handling it? But you've answered it immediately. Thank you for that.
Yeah, because these things are happening lately, although not too many cases like that, but they are happening, and different countries are handling it in a different way. So it's good for people to know about it.
Indeed. So, moving back to the Indian seafarers, there was initially a widespread fear of them losing their jobs and these high-paying livelihoods due to the travel restrictions in place. You've now come to the rescue with the novel idea of chartering flights. But even now, it seems China still remains a major concern, as no visas are being issued for that country. Many companies are still being forced to employ local Chinese crew from the highest ranks to the lowest. Should the shipping community be worried about this development, and what would your thoughts be on this, sir?
Yes, Akanksha, that is a fact. Actually, China has been a difficult country to pierce through when it comes to the travel of not only seafarers, I think for all foreigners, whether associated with any industry, the China is yet closed to all foreigners. For Indian seafarers, of course, the border dispute between China and India has aggravated the situation further to what was already happening due to COVID. So China is definitely a difficult country right now to pierce through. And unfortunately, yes, a number of Indian seafarers have and are losing some of the jobs to local Chinese nationals, because the new buildings there have to be taken over by owners and they are forced to employ local Chinese. But Honestly speaking, I don't think it's a major worry of concern. It's not an end of the world for Indian seafarers. I'm pretty sure they will come back, and they will come back with flying colors and replace on those ships again as soon as the opportunity arises. So I don't think it's a very big worry, but temporarily, yes, at present it is a sort of a worry. But China cannot remain locked down because that will affect their inner industry also in the same manner.
All right, thank you for your insight on that. That gives some hope to the rest of us. Okay, now Doha and Colombo are also emerging as some of the more friendly ports to facilitate Indian seafarers crew change. What is stopping India from becoming equally favorable? Do you think India can develop into such a hub as well?
Yes, actually, that is a fact that the Colombo and Doha has emerged as the hubs for the seafarers changes. Colombo, in fact, was the first one who declared themselves to be the friend of Indian seafarers, let me put it that way, because that is where the first chartered flight from India went into, and then it took precedence and many more chartered flights went. And since the connection from Colombo was via Doha mostly, so Doha itself came as with an offer on win-win type of a situation, because the airline industry as it is was suffering due to the lockdown. So Doha, the Qatar Airways, they offered themselves to do the crew changes for Indian seafarers and offer themselves for the chartered flights. So now Doha has become one of the main hubs after Colombo, where all the flights from India are going from Delhi or Mumbai, and most of the seafarers are traveling to Doha, and from Doha there are many connections to across the globe. So seafarers are able to connect to their connections to other parts of the globe, and seafarers who are signing off from the ships, they are coming back to Doha, and from there they are connected with the chartered flights back to India. When it comes to India, because the international flights in India are still not started, so for foreign seafarers, it is still not possible to sign off in India and fly out. For Indian seafarers, yes, all ports in India have their SOPs, and there are a lot of Indian seafarers crew changes are taking place in India. But again, Cochin being one of the hub ports, where a lot of ships actually diverted because of the strategic location of this port, and a lot of crew changes happened in Cochin. But unfortunately, the local agents and the authorities there, or rather the local agents, started taking advantage of the situation and started charging exorbitant prices for the crew changes, which went up to $100,000 to $150,000 also for one crew change of a group of people. So that discouraged a lot of owners to bring the ships, because the profits are anyway paper thin, and paying so much for the crew changes. So it went back to Gale, which south of Colombo, south of Sri Lanka, which became again a hub for the seafarers crew changes. Although Cochin and Indian some ports can definitely do better if they actually comply with some standard operating procedures. Now Gale has become a hub because of this reason. Otherwise, a lot of other Indian seafarers crew changes are definitely taking place in India, and Cochin itself has done almost 5,000 plus crew changes, which is almost quarter of the total seafarer crew changes which have happened in India.
Right. Okay. So that means there will be some movement in the future. Perhaps India will become such a hub soon enough. Hopefully.
Yes, I have no doubts. India has potential, and India definitely can become a hub. Some of the strategic ports in India can definitely do better and can become the hub.
Yes. Okay, moving on. The Australian Maritime Safety Authority, or the AMSA for short, has recently come up with some new guidelines on Australia's stand regarding the crew whose contracts have overextended. Could you share any thoughts on their view of this?
Yes, actually, that's a very big move by AMSA. That, as you mentioned, the Australian Port State Control, they have said enough is enough. There are a lot of ships coming with crew on board for more than 13-14 months, and they consider this as a safety hazard, which definitely is a fact, because the mental health gets affected with such long stay on board. So AMSA has come out with a circular recently, just about a week back, in which they have mentioned that any crew on board the vessel coming to any of the Australian port, if they are more than 11 months on board, the owner has to have a procedure in place with the approval from flag state about their signing off. And if it is more than 13 months, the ship will not be allowed to sail out of Australian port till they have the flag state approval and confirmation that the crew change will be happening in one of the next ports or the same port. So Australia has taken it in a very, very tough way, and it will become tougher for crew changes in other ports where they have to be affected before the ship goes to Australia if any crew member is on board for more than 11 months, say.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that. So now we're coming to the end of the formal part of the interview, but I would like, as a ship manager, for you to please give a message to ship owners and charterers as well.
Yeah, I would rather like to thank all ship owners, charterers, and of course the ship managers for taking care of the seafarers in these unprecedented conditions. A lot of ship owners have come up with a lot of plans for the crew changes when it is so difficult at different ports in the world. With the lockdown in India, they are paying for the chartered flights, they are paying exorbitant costs for the crew changes, but this is all to take care of the seafarers. Many owners consider seafarers as a family, and I would appeal to all the ship owners to do the same way, continue to take care of the seafarers, and let's consider them as our family and do best for them in these conditions.
Okay, perfect. And what about your message to seafarers and the families, since you've also been a seafarer, perhaps something you would like to share with them?
Yes, certainly. First of all, I think I would like to hats off to all the seafarers for keeping the world running when the entire international waters were closed. Industry was on standstill, but they kept the shipping running. They kept the global supply chain running. So hats off to them and salute to them for their such hard work. And hats off to their families also for bearing with these long tenures on board and long stays ashore before they are able to go on board. So thanks for that to all the seafarers, and we definitely fully understand the difficulties that they are going through. But my message to the seafarers here would be: please be patient, and definitely you will be rewarded. There is, every dark cloud has a silver lining, and you can always see a light at the end of the tunnel. Let's look for that light, and I have no doubts that in the very near future we will have the things back to normal, and you all will be able to move across the way we used to do before. Stay positive, stay connected with your families, and stay safe. Of course, that is most important, and interact with each other on board. That will be my very big message to all the seafarers. And in the end, I would just like to say that those who are waiting ashore to get on board, and those who are on board for long tenures and waiting to come home, rest assured you will be in one of those chartered flights coming back to India or out of India. Thank you.
That's wonderful. What a wonderful and encouraging message, Captain Sood. And thank you so very much for taking the time to chat with us at Sailor today, and for your brilliant insights, and for all the hard work that you're doing to allay the Indian seafarers' plight. We wish you all the very best, and we look forward to connecting with you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akanksha, and I am quite sure that we all will come out of this unprecedented pandemic situation in very near future.
Thanks to the initiative of DG Shipping, Mr. Amitabh Kumar, his COVID branch led by Captain Daniel, Honorable Minister of Shipping Shri Mansukh Mandavia ji is on record saying that the Ministry of Shipping will ensure all support to every stranded Indian seafarer to return home. Mansukh Mandavia ji is personally following up on all cases of abandonment of Indian seafarers, and we know that he has committed to a rigorous follow-up, ensuring no one slips through the cracks. We leave you with this good news. Until we meet again on another episode of View from the Bridge, till then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay positive.